Arjuna Vishad Yoga. So Arjuna Vishad Yoga means, Vishad means despair, and yoga means the way of connection. So Arjuna. So Arjuna is in despair. And actually, this is a yoga. This is a way to connect to God, is through despair. And if it's a yoga, that means there's a teacher. And so Arjuna is our teacher, and he's showing us how to approach the Lord. And that means being in despair. So this Arjuna Vishad Yoga, that is actually opening his heart up to receive instruction, to be open. Otherwise, there's no way to truly receive instruction. It's just going to bounce off the heart. And so being in despair is that way he's approaching his friend. So Krishna is giving him his instructions, and he's giving especially the nature of the soul, the eternal soul, and karma yoga, and how to act within this world, be detached from the fruits of one's actions. And that's really a focus for the first 6 chapters or so of the Gita. And there's 18 chapters. So those middle 6 chapters are like the bhakti chapters. So there's karma, there's bhakti in the middle, and then there's jnana yoga at the end. So this bhakti yoga, I have like a little, I'm going to share my screen. Is that okay? Do I have a capacity to do that? Okay. So I'm going to share my screen because I have a little bit of a presentation that I'll toggle to every so often. Wait. Hold on. Okay, let me see if I can do this. Okay, so I first thought that we would start with a definition of love. So if bhakti is yoga, if bhakti means love is bhakti yoga, I thought let's start with some just dictionary definitions of love. Everybody could put in their 2 cents on what this word means, but let's turn to dictionary.com. And here's some just dictionary.com. Here's some definitions for love. Okay, it's a noun. We have a profoundly tender, passionate affection for another person. That sounds nice, but it seems a little shallow, maybe. It's there, but it's a feeling, and feelings can come and go. How about it again? Here again is a feeling of deep attachment that you have, for a parent or a child or a friend, someone you know, okay? And then sexual passion or desire. So this is dictionary.com. And, if we were going to look at something like this word, it's so deep and profound, it's actually hardwired into our bodies and our brains. And I watched a YouTube video lately about a love anthropologist studying how it's actually within the body, it's within our society. So for something like that, it's so profound. It's like something that is deep within all of our hearts. Like, I want to love and be loved. This seems very shallow to me. It seems like a very superficial understanding of love. And some people would say, no, love isn't a noun. Love is a verb. Love is something that you do. So, okay, let's look at the verbs. To have love or affection for, or to have a profoundly tender, passionate affection for another person. And that's it. That's the extent of a Western understanding of love. It's a feeling, but this feeling, or this kind of shallow action, and that's it. This is what our lives are for. A feeling that can come and go, and a feeling that it can be compromised at any time. So now we have to ask this question. So let's define love. And I found a very nice definition by Brene Brown, and she's a PhD researcher on shame. And so she has I see a nodding of your head there, Jennifer. So some of you may know her. Yeah, she wrote some beautiful books, and she likes to give definitions, and not that she becomes the authority, but rather let's have a conversation around this. Let me define this so we can discuss it. So she writes that, love is not something we give or get. It is something that we nurture and grow, a connection that can only be cultivated between two people. So in this understanding, actually, love is not something that can be given, or it can't be taken away either. So it's deeply within all of us. It's within our nature. So this is a little bit more aligned with the understanding of Bhakti Yoga, which is that love is inherent within all of our hearts. So if we truly understand that love is within all of our hearts, even on this material human level, and that it's just a relationship that can be either cultivated or neglected. So it's not something that can be given or taken away. It's not some object. It's a relationship. So that is what bhakti is. Bhakti is a relationship. So I also have a nice diagram here that I created to show this relationship that we have, not only with each other, but with God. So if you see here, we have Bhagavan, or God, and Bhakta, the spirit soul, and the relationship between the two, that is bhakti. So that's relationship of loving devotional service. So that relationship can either be cultivated or neglected. So with bhakti, that means that I think there was something to be said about, people saying that, love is a verb. It's something that you do. It's something that you show. So this loving devotional service is not only what I do, but how I do it with devotion. So I want to, within that mood, I want to move to I have 3 different verses from the Bhagavad Gita I wanted to focus on for tonight. And then we'll open it up for some discussion. And the first verse, I'll just chant some prayers of invocation for auspiciousness, and then I'll read out this verse and some reflections on this. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this beautiful verse, this is from chapter 7. And Krishna says to Arjuna, O son of Kunti, I am the taste of water, the light of the sun and the moon, the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. I am the sound in ether and ability in man. So this is a beautiful verse where Krishna is pointing out to Arjuna, his friend, where he can be found. And and there is a particular phrase that Krishna is saying here that caught my attention particularly, which is where Krishna says, I am the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. And Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport to this verse that the impersonalists are very much afraid of addressing the Supreme Lord by his innumerable names. So they prefer to vibrate the transcendental sound of Omkara. Because I thought that also the word afraid, Prabhupada is saying that they're afraid of chanting Krishna's names. And I wondered, why is that? Why would you be afraid of chanting Krishna's name? So we can look at these 2 transcendental sounds, Om and Krishna. And Om is what is preferred to be chanted by impersonalists, or those who do not see God as a person, but more as a powerful source, transcendental energy that we're all surrounded by. That is that conception that God is not a person. And then Krishna is the form of God as a person, someone I can see, touch, and he has a name. Krishna is very intimate. It's like it's like calling, instead of Mr. President, you say Barack, or I don't know, Joe. Our current president, you would say Joe instead of Mr. President, right? It's very personal to call someone by it's like calling him by his first name, God. So what's interesting here is that Prabhupada's saying that you're afraid to use like God's first name. Why would you be afraid? And it's really about this relationship, about cultivating that relationship that is within all of us, and it can be very scary. So personal relationships can be fraught with a lot of pain. I think I speak from personal experience, and maybe everyone here can speak from personal experience, that a broken heart is possibly one of the most painful experiences I've ever experienced, and maybe anyone here would confirm that. And that personal relationships can be very challenging and very confronting. So in a way, I can be afraid of cultivating that personal relationship. So I'll neglect the bhakti in my heart, but I'll still cultivate. I mean, that bhakti is is specifically cultivated with Bhagavan. So Bhagavan means the person of Godhead. So bhakti is only cultivated to God. It's not cultivated to anyone else, or even on anyone on this planet, or even to demigods. It's just for Bhagavan, specifically a person. He has all the opulences. So Omkara is the Lord as all-pervading power and energy. So technically there's no bhakti in that expression, but it's still God. And that's what's so wonderful about this verse from the Gita, is that Krishna is making himself accessible to all. Prabhupada emphasizes in this purport, he says, practically speaking, there's no conflict between personalism and impersonalism. One who knows God knows the impersonal conception and personal conception are simultaneously present in everything, and there's no contradiction. It's meant to be accessible to all. So Mr. President and Joe, they're the same person, right? They're the same person. There's no contradiction. It's just, what level do I have this relationship? Okay, I would call him Mr. President. I don't have that relationship with him. I'm not his child, his friend, his wife, anything like that. And that's okay. So for Arjuna, he can call Krishna, Krishna. He's his friend. He has that personal relationship. But we can see by the name is so powerful. There's something so powerful about the name of God. It can really open the heart, and it's one of the 9 processes of devotional service, is how do I connect with God, and specifically chanting his name. So bringing this up about Omkara, like saying the syllable Om, and then also saying the Lord's name, or Krishna, and when you chant the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna. So I know that, you've been to, everyone here has been to a yoga class, I imagine, maybe, yes, no, yeah, yoga, maybe, one time, okay. How about you, Brendan? No yoga? Yeah?
Yoga, yes.
Okay,
yes.
Okay, you've been to yoga class. So I just went to New York City, and I went to like an Equinox gym with my sister, and I did a yoga class, and it was like the most New York City yoga class you could ever imagine, just and like a gym class. But at the end, the teacher, he still had us all come together and we chant. I was surprised. He had us all chant the syllable Om. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, I feel like I could feel a certain peace and upliftment, even just saying that syllable. It's just a syllable. It's not a name, it's a syllable. And I could feel like this higher vibration. And so in this way, God is making himself accessible to everyone, even the gym people in Equinox in New York City. So he's saying, okay, if you prefer not to have that personal confrontational kind of relationship here, at least chant this, and it's still accessible to all. So Prabhupada is saying there's no there's no reason to have these like huge debates about them, that we can truly see that God is all aspects. So then I have a second verse that I wanted to focus on. Okay, and the second one here is chapter 9, or text 2. This knowledge is the king of education and the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting, and it is joyfully performed. So when I was around 13 years old, I read this verse in this children's book, you could say, and by Chris and Kim and Chris Murray. And they just it's called Illuminations from the Bhagavad Gita. And they took particular verses and they illuminated them. They illustrated them kind of. And so when I read this, I remember really meditating on this. It's a big book, quite big. And I remember gazing at this particular plate of illustration. And I focused on the beautiful drawings. And then my eye was drawn down to Srila Prabhupada on his harmonium at the bottom. You can see him there. And he's singing. And he's kind of surrounded by this beautiful light in the back. And I remember really meditating on this verse and looking at the form of Srila Prabhupada at the bottom and thinking, joyfully performed. Like, I want that. I want what he has. I want what's going on here. And what's interesting here is that the perfection of religion. I mean, the point of all religion is to bring the heart to a higher level of connection with each other and with God. And that is the perfection of religion, and it's meant to be Bhakti yoga is actually a scientific process. It gives direct perception of the self. It's really amazing. There's this book by Srila Prabhupada called The Science of Self-Realization. So if self-realization is a science, that means it's replicable. That means anyone on the planet can replicate this experiment and receive results. And if you do this process of bhakti yoga, then it's joyfully performed. Not only is the end result beautiful and something, that's what I want. I want love and I want to be loved. But the process itself is joyfully performed. It's not some painful, austere, confusing process. It's directly experienced. It's like, this is the truth. This is something so real. Switches. And so if happiness is the goal, right, of all religion is to be happy, Prabhupada's emphasizing here, even the process is happiness. The process and the goal are the same, this susukam. And Srila Prabhupada writes, why is this a happy process? He says, devotional service consists of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. So these 9 processes of devotional service. Are you familiar with the 9 processes of devotional service or anything like that? Kind of so, like thumbs up, middle, down, like if you're familiar.
No, we didn't really touch.
Not really. Okay, no
yeah.
problem. That's what's so beautiful about bhakti, is that it's so scientific that it's broken down even into particular processes that you can do. And what Srila Prabhupada is writing in this purport here is that he says, Shravanam, that if you hear, and so what you're doing right now is literally a devotional process. Just you listening. It's a process of bhakti, just to listen in of itself. It's devotion. Not everyone is doing this. Who is is on Zoom at 7:13 p.m. on a Tuesday, listening to discussions about the Bhagavad Gita. This is very unique. It is very special. And this is specifically a devotional process, what you are all doing right now, just sitting there and listening attentively. So Shravanam and then Kirtanam, this chanting of the Lord's name. But Kirtanam also means glorification. So if you are ever speaking the glories of the Lord or Krishna or anything, that is also Kirtanam. So there are 9 processes and they're very beautiful and they're so practical. They're so divinely, beautifully practical, very sweet. And so this Shravan and Kirtan, these are the foundational aspects of devotion, of these devotional processes. And so this Kirtanam is specifically chanting of the holy name. This is a very powerful process of devotion. And it's joyful. Doing kirtan is a very joyful experience. and Prabhupada's saying, just right now, you can experience love. You can experience devotion in your heart right now if you just try it. A scientific experiment is meant to be replicated and it is meant to have consistent results. So, okay, chant the holy name and see for yourself. See for yourself what happens when you do chant, when you do listen, when you do offer worship to the deity form, when you do remember smaranam, this archanam, when you become Krishna's friend, das sakyam, right? When you offer prayers, vandanam, when you do engage in any of these processes of devotion, you'll experience something in the heart and it's joyful. It's joyful. And Prabhupada writes here in this purport, he says that anyone can engage in this process. He really emphasizes that you can offer a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, or some water to God, and he'll accept it. If I just do that with devotion, Krishna will accept it. It's so beautiful, you know. Prabhupada really emphasizes anyone. He even puts it in italics, anyone, that anyone can do this, no matter where you are, what language you speak, what culture you belong to, what gender, what social class, anything. It doesn't matter. And you could, he says, even if you're poverty stricken, you can still offer a leaf. You can find a leaf off a tree and offer that, because Krishna is emphasizing in the Gita, you can offer me even a leaf. And Prabhupada says here, God only accepts the love with which things are offered to him, because God doesn't really need a leaf and he doesn't need any water. I mean, if he is truly the creator of all leaves and all water, why would he need any leaves or any drop of water? He just wants the love. And it's like that bhakti that's in our hearts, right? We have this Bhagavan and we're the bhakta, the soul. He just wants that like relationship to revive, right? That to be activated again. That's all. And so what I found quite revolutionary about this purport was that Prabhupada is saying devotional service is the purest form of religion, can be executed joyfully without difficulty. Therefore, one should adopt it. And he takes this stance that's so, I love it because he's so straightforward. He's not like some salesman trying to, convince you of something. He's not this passionate evangelist, preaching with all this emotion. It's almost this logic, like, well, don't you want to be happy? Don't you want what's best for you? Don't you, isn't this what everyone's looking for? Everyone's looking for joy. He just says, therefore, one should adopt it. Like, this is the most practical, obvious conclusion to come from this verse. And it shows the power of Srila Prabhupada being a devotee himself, because there are so many translations of the Bhagavad Gita. There are hundreds. I believe there are hundreds. But none of those translations ever actually inspired anyone to take up the process of devotion. It's specifically his translation and his commentary. There are countless stories of people reading the Gita and then actually changing their lives and becoming devotees of Krishna just by reading. They don't even meet anyone physically. They just read this book and they realize, oh, this process is joyfully performed. I think I should adopt it. And they adopt it. And there's power in his words because he's living these words himself. So this is the second verse that I wanted to mention, was just this power of devotion that can be cultivated and that it's joyful. So the first verse I was talking about, the power of the holy name of Krishna, and that Krishna still comes even as Omkara, and he's surrounding us at all times. And then this devotion that we can cultivate is within all of us, and we can do it practically, and it's joyful. And so this final verse, just a moment. So we have this this final verse here, chapter 9, text 11. So fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the supreme Lord of all that be. Okay, so this can be a pretty interesting verse. Like we were talking about the people who tend more towards impersonalism, that the idea that God is a person is like beyond conception, and for good reason. You know, I was really thinking about how, you know, let's talk about the real shock value of this verse, which is that Krishna is saying, he's emphasizing that he descends in human form, but then fools deride him when he does so. So in the Bhagavad Gita, he's in human form. And so fools deride him when he comes in human form. And, you know, but why would you deride him in human form? Why would that be a negative thing? So if we look a little bit deeper at this, we can see that, you know, humans have so little control. You know, even the president of the United States, who is the most powerful man, you could argue, in the world, because just on a practical level, you could argue that the United States is the most powerful country in the world, and the most powerful position within the United States is the president. And so, you know, logically, if you set up a logical syllogism, it would be, you know, the president is the most powerful man in the world, president of the United States. But you even take the president of the United States, right, who's supposed to have control, right? I mean, this is a man who has power, but he can't even control his own hunger. He can't control when he needs to go to the bathroom, frankly, just very graphically, he can't control that. He can't control his own body in so many ways. The time of day is controlling him. When does he go to work? When is the time to go to sleep? He's being controlled by so many factors. And this is the president. What to speak of myself? I mean, he has more powers than I do. I mean, the president has certain powers, such as, I guess, he acts as the commander-in-chief during, you know, wartime. There's some other, he can recognize foreign countries. There are certain other powers that a president has, can veto certain bills. But, you know, he's the most powerful man. What to speak of me, right? There's billions of human beings on this planet. I'm just this little speck. I live here in Florida, and I'm just a speck. I have so little power to control anything. And so human beings, we're like this. You know, even the most powerful among us have so little power. So you can see that putting God in the position of a human, it's almost like blasphemous and ridiculous. Like, God can't be a human. That's like impossible. Humans can't control their own bodily functions. What to speak of controlling the universe? What to speak of controlling all things? So a name for God is Mahapurusha, you know, the supreme controller. So how can he control everything? Not a blade of grass moves without God's will, right? That is also a verse in the Gita. How can he control a blade of grass if he's in the human form? So impersonalists kind of tend to look at the Bhagavad Gita as allegorical, that this is something like a conversation between the spirit, and it's about consciousness. This battle never actually happened. This conversation never happened. It's just more, philosophical. But when they get to this verse, they usually trip up because Krishna is directly declaring that I descend in human form. And it's very difficult. It's like puzzles those who see God in an impersonal way. And but let's look at how this could be possible, how God can come in this form as a human, and still be in control of the entire universe. And I wanted to show you one last image here. If I can do my screen share here one last time. So if you've been to the airport, you have seen, this is like, I did a Google of the largest airplanes in the world. And so this is Emirates. And you see these gigantic planes, right? They're so huge. And you see that this is the person who's controlling this plane is just this little pilot up there in the pilot seat. To be able to control this plane doesn't mean that this person needs to be as big as the plane or very big, him or herself, right? It's there's no need for that. And in fact, even the pilot that's within that seat, it's more particularly the function of the brain and the knowledge, even smaller than, it doesn't even mean the whole body. I mean, of course, the hands control, but technically a pilot could be possibly disabled in some ways, but it's really amazing. Like, this pilot is controlling this gigantic machine. And if human beings make machines even bigger than this, they could still control. One little human being can still control these gigantic machines. And so the universe is called this yantra. It's a machine, and the body itself is a machine. This universe is like this machine, sophisticated machine. And this prakriti, this is the material nature. It's material nature, it's subordinate to spirit. So if it's this machine, then it can be always controlled by superior energy. So the Lord is superior to all energies, to everyone, everything. And so it doesn't mean that God suddenly needs to be some gigantic, all-pervading giant person or even a thing. The Lord can come not only be tiny, minuscule size and gigantic, the size of universes, but he can come in medium size. That's Srila Prabhupada would say that's what's so wonderful about Krishna, is that not only is he the bigger than the biggest and the smaller than the smallest, but he can come in medium size. And why does he come in medium size? Why would it matter that he comes in human form? And it's because how beautiful that I can have that relationship with Krishna. Because it's hard to have a relationship with like the sun or like vast diffused energy, light, or a microscopic atom, right? I mean, how do I have a relationship? And, even if it was like a tree that was human sized, how do I have a relationship with that tree? It's like particularly having this face in this body is this exchange. And I can actually look into Krishna's eyes and connect on a very personal level. And that's what makes Krishna so beautiful, because he comes in a way that that relationship can be reciprocated. And just one last point here. So, I'll mention here, Srila Prabhupada says in this purport, how he says that, if this, we can look into Krishna's eyes. In the Bhakti tradition, there's the tradition of worshiping the form as a deity or a murti. So a sacred statue that allows us to have that kind of relationship and reciprocation with the Lord by worshiping the deity form. And that is a process of devotional service called archana. So worshiping the deity form is a way to cultivate love and devotion within the heart. And Srila Prabhupada writes here that there are also many impersonalists who deride temple worship. They say that since God is everywhere, why should one restrict himself to temple worship? And then Prabhupada says, but if God is everywhere, is he not in the temple or in the deity? So I thought that was just very lovely logic, because he's saying, well, okay, sure, God is everywhere, but so that means he can also be in the temple, right? He can also be in the deity form. And that is that personal relationship. And I find that being in the temple, since I was a little girl, I just remember always looking up and seeing the deity form of Krishna. And it was, in a child's mind, there isn't all of these strong, pushes and pulls of philosophy and what's true or not. It just felt like the truest thing to me that, oh, this is Krishna and this is God, of course. And I felt I had that connection, and I would offer some prayers, and it was a very natural expression. And what's very beautiful about the deity form is that there's a very unique experience. If you look within the eyes of the deity, or the dristi, the experience that comes over the heart is that everything is going to be okay. This is actually one of the effects of looking within the eyes of the deities. Like, oh, everything's going to be okay. And this has happened to me countless times, that it just going into the temple and looking within the eyes of the deity, just experiencing like the peace that comes. And that's that relationship. It's not something that can just be experienced by, the light of the universe, or seeing, shocking majesty or power, but that loving relationship. And there's reciprocation that comes. So it doesn't only mean I'm going to chant God's name and worship the deity form and hear about God, Shravan, Kirtan, and then I'm doing all of this, but there's a reciprocation. It means that I cultivate this love in my heart, but it's also, God has so much love for us. Krishna has love, and it flows back into our own hearts. And that's why it's joyfully performed. That's why devotion is joyfully performed, because there is reciprocation, and it's just awakening the natural love within the heart. It's present within all of us. There's a beautiful phrase from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and I don't have it completely memorized, so I want to just refer to it. Maybe I don't have it here, but basically the Bengali is saying that the love for Krishna is present within all of our hearts. It's always there. It's eternally there. So, and it's just something to be cultivated and awakened and developed. So those are just some reflections on this yoga of devotion and love from the Bhagavad Gita, and Srila Prabhupada's beautiful purports and reflections on these verses, just a few of them. And I'd like to open it up if anybody has any questions or comments, any reflections that was coming up for you.
Thank you so much. It was really, really wonderful. And I myself learned a lot today. So very grateful for making it accessible and practical for all of us. I will ask Roseanne, would you like to share? Would you like to go first and share something or ask something?
Well, when you were talking about chanting and, that just chanting his name is, brings you peace. And I told the group and before that I used to listen to the chants without knowing really what I was listening to, and it would just ease my anxiety. It would ease my mind. It would make me feel better. Regardless of what was happening, I would just like feel peace. I would just feel calm and peace. And so like I experienced that firsthand without even knowing what I was experiencing. I just really loved listening to it. I loved listening to it. And it is nice to know what I'm listening to now.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. It's like I had mentioned earlier, it's like this scientific process, and we sometimes don't even know why it's working. Somebody was saying you sometimes don't even need to know exactly how or why a medicine works, but if you take the medicine, it will heal you anyway. So it's kind of like that feeling that it's just medicine, and just listening to the holy name in of itself is going to be healing and open the heart, even if you don't know what it means. That's what's so amazing and beautiful. Very special. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Brandon, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I would just, say the same thing. Just like my developing practice just brings in a sense of peace, but also power. Like it's like the whole mood is dance and sing, and it's playful and it's musical and it's joyful. It's like, take the seriousness out, be joyful. And, these are the things that I sought, and it's the same. Like I kirtan 15 years ago. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, but this is kind of fun, and and now just with still learning more, and especially with Hare Krishna mantra, it's like it's building up a lot of energy every single time, and I can feel my mind melt, and now my heart melt and my body melting, but also vibrating in like peace and harmony, So yeah, it's really a beautiful experience. And I have to say, this story of the Gita and Arjuna is very significant and real in our today's world, with the concept of having to fight. And specifically, I think a lot of messages come through our movies. And I just watched again for the second time, like the latest Matrix Resurrection. I don't know if anybody's seen that yet, but I could see so many applications in it as being the Gita. Like Neo is busted and broken and brainwashed and confused and weak and trapped. He's in the micro loop of being in the Matrix, and he already saved the world, but he got stuck back in it. And now he's like, Morpheus, who is kind of Krishna, comes back and like, you're gonna fight, you got to go save your lady, like fight, and like demands him and beats him up until he like fights back. Like it's everywhere. It's everywhere. So I'm seeing it everywhere, and there is something about having to fight to break the loop, fight to find your love, fight to heal, fight for peace. But like once you find peace, you reel it back in,
Yeah, it's a really beautiful point you say, Brandon, which is like it melts the heart, like just being in that sense of harmony and sweetness and the gentleness of love, just by chanting. And then also there's like an empowerment that comes through chanting. It's like, it like invigorates the soul, like to do what's necessary, to do one's duty, and to take action that's purposeful and meaningful. And the first six chapters, the first six chapters of the Gita really emphasize how to act within the world. So these middle six chapters discuss bhakti yoga, but the first six chapters really emphasize karma yoga, or acting within the world, and how to do so with honor and nobility, and being detached from the fruits of one's actions. You could say Neo in the Matrix. I didn't watch it. I don't know if I will, but I watched the first one. Yeah. And by the way, I think the filmmakers, they implemented the philosophy from so many of these scriptures of the world.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So they were very informed when they wrote these stories, like the whole Maya and everything in the Matrix, like that. So
seriously,
but for Neo, like to just do his duty, be detached from the results, but you need to do what you need to do. And so realizing I need to fight, but without that passion, without that stickiness or attachment to the results, but rather this is what I need to do and I'm meant to do. And by just becoming detached from the fruits, which is very difficult, just do my duty. That in of itself is very powerful. And it does set the stage for bhakti yoga, because it means being detached even from, okay, I'm going to offer my love and devotion, and I'm not attached to all these expectations that Krishna will reciprocate somehow. I just need to, do my duty. There's a sense of love that comes with doing one's duty also. So in that sense, fighting, but without the attachment and without all that passion. It's like that invigorating empowerment to do the needful.
Right. Yeah. It's good metaphorism and symbolism and like clarity from the Maya, and like understanding more about fasting and sense gratification, and like seeing how those are traps into the illusion, and being seeking clarity and even receiving clarity to be like, okay, there is a very right way of living, and there is an effect to that, and that effect is what I seek.
Yes. Yes.
Yep, I am thankful.
Thank you. And Manjulali Priya, you sent this direct message to me. You're welcome to share with the whole group. This is the verse that I had wanted to share with all of you. It says, pure love for Krishna is eternally established in the hearts of the living entities. It is not something to be gained from another source. When the heart is purified by hearing and chanting this love naturally emanates. So it's so beautiful. Everything is really contained within this beautiful verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that it's eternally there in the heart, this love. And by chanting, purifies the heart, opens the heart, this love awakens. So whether we even know it or not, it's good when we know it, because then we can sustain it. If we don't know what we're doing, we can just drift away and we don't know why we lost touch. But if we know what we're doing, we can actually consciously stay actively engaged. And like what Brandon's saying, kind of fight and be dutiful and do the needful. So ideally is that we do educate ourselves and we learn these processes of devotion and actively participate.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I have this thing with the mute button. I thank you so much for what you shared. And it just strikes me how different it is from like Christian upbringing. But but I like the idea of how personal it is when you think of God as also a person, you know, and also in different entities and in everything. Yeah, for me, that actually makes it easier to have the connection. So, yeah, so that's just something that I'm kind of marinating in, is just, and it does seem very, it's not like the fear of God or the fear of Krishna. It's more about cultivating that relationship. So you know what I'm talking about, the whole patriarchal,
Yes.
Yeah. So
be a
that's
good God,
another-
fear God is the ultimate, like be a good God fearing person, right? Like
yes. Yeah. So and then just also the patriarchal nature of that whole thing. So my dad was Protestant and my mom was Catholic. And yeah, that's a great combination. So and with Catholicism, there's all the the shame and yeah, and this I don't have a sense of fear or shaming for so that I find that kind of personally liberating.
Right.
And I love that thing. You didn't say it, but in previous sessions, that if you take one step, Krishna takes 10. And in my old upbringing, and I wasn't really raised either one. My parents just thought about what to raise us, and so it was more. So I always considered religion like a cause for war. Like I just didn't like. So this, but forgot what I was going to say. But
taking one step to Krishna, like the reciprocation.
Yeah, that he takes 10 steps. Because I used to think, oh my God, like I'm not going to be good enough. So I'm going to have to do like, be such this like perfect person, perfectionistic in order to, and now with this, I kind of feel like, oh, so if I, offer my food to Krishna, if I, say his name, if I meditate, if I, offer a prayer for someone or just smile or, a stranger or whatever, that, like that's something that it's meaningful. So I guess what I'm trying to say, like simple things become like when you get all the shame and all the fear and all that stuff kind of out, then you can kind of appreciate more of the essence of what love is. So.
I really appreciate that word you said, which is meaningful, that even these small things become meaningful. That I think that's what we're all looking for. We're just looking for meaning. Like we just want meaning in our lives. And I read a very beautiful excerpt from a book called The Mark by Maurice Nicoll. And he writes that he quotes from the Bible, actually. And he says that, God is basically, in the beginning, there was meaning. We translate it usually, in the beginning, there was the word, and the word was God. But this is also, logos is the word meaning, actually in Greek. So in the beginning, there was meaning and God was meaning. And so looking for meaning is like so intrinsic within all of us. And, he would say meaninglessness is a terrible illness. It has to be gotten over. And saying the word God closes the mind, but meaning cannot do that. Meaning opens the mind, it opens the heart. And so always looking for meaning in things. If somebody feels like they don't have meaning in anything, they don't have any sense of God. And so even just the little things, like you were saying, just these little, a smile, a smile can be devotional service. Just a
I know,
smile.
but it's so missed with COVID and all the masking. You couldn't
Yeah.
see people's smiles.
Just a smile. You feel it. You feel the power of a smile. It's like amazing. And what it's like that for God to see our smile. What would it be like to see God's smile? Like, whoa, that's actually really deep. Just seeing the meaning in even the tiniest things, and that there's that love, a particular relationship, Christianity, that's a certain kind of relationship that God comes in that form for certain kinds of people, just with any other religion in the world. And it's a particular kind, that's what they're ready for. Like this is the kind of relationship people are ready for. And so this intimate relationship with Krishna, it's like, okay, are you ready for something intimate like that? And then it can open up. And so then there's that reciprocation that's very sweet. Krishna is sweetness.
And does that bring a certain level? Because I don't really like the word being happy. I see that as kind of conditional and fleeting. That's just my personal thing. But I like meaning, and also with a reciprocation, then there can also bring a sense of satisfaction.
Sorry, what did you say?
If
Meditation?
you're able to cultivate a personal relationship. So where simple things have meaning, and then with that reciprocation, like let's say that you smile at Krishna and you can feel Krishna smile back, then that also brings, in addition to the meaning, a sense of satisfaction.
Yes.
Like a deep sense of satisfaction. To me, that's more something that I can feel and integrate better than like, I'm often not happy. I don't know what it is, but like I've always been a curious sort of philosophical soul seeker type, but so I can't happy kind of, though I'm all for people who can do that, but
it's beyond you.
I'm all for it, but for me, the meaning and the deep sense of satisfaction with that reciprocation in any relation, that for me, I find fulfilling.
Beautiful. This word happy, it's a really good point you make, because it's not about like always being on some high or jumping around like cloud nine. I'm happy. But the word happiness, sukha, if you actually break down the root word of this word, happiness or sukha, K-H-A means space. And su means like an expansion. So an expansion of space. Actually, if you notice, if you feel content and satisfied and happy, there's an expansion that comes. So it's not about, it often can manifest as jumping around, but it's more like the mind expands and opens, like as Brandon was saying earlier, softens that sukha, that expansion of space, actually. And dukkha, which is the opposite, is often translated as suffering, but it's this contraction, dukkha, space, this contraction of space. So it becomes, I'm becoming more closed, I'm becoming more like insular, and actually my space is contracted and tight. And so it's like suffering, actually. It's painful to have that closed, contracted experience. That it's like I'm distracted and bored and I'm looking for something to do, or all I can see is this pain, like my life has now boiled down to this hurt in my finger or something, it's this contraction of space. So yes, it's this, the joyful, the happiness is an expansion, and the susukha. It's very nice because the Sanskrit of the verse, or joy, this process is joyfully performed. Susukha. It means sukha is the happiness, but it's the ultimate. Su means even the purest happiness. So not just even happiness of this world where your mind is expanded, but like the purest kind of happiness by performing devotional service. So we can experience that kind of contentment and its satisfaction even in this world, but experiencing divine, like susukha, is like something that can only really be accessed through a loving relationship with Krishna, with God.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. I just have a question which Edna asked yesterday to me, and I'm yet to answer her, but we would love to hear from you.
Mm.
So we know that we bring our own baggages, and we read so much text, and we want to improve, but something is like tugging us down, pulling us down, pinning us down, but we want to rise above our mental platform, above our baggages. We want to leave them behind. So how do we reconcile with that? Because sometimes we feel guilty, that we're not yet there, but we want to be there. And what's happening? So how do we, reconcile with this fact? How do we deal with it? And how do we move forward with a positive frame of mind? So she asked something like that.
So just to clarify, the question is like that there's like wanting to move forward in spiritual understanding and spiritual growth and maturity, but feeling very discouraged, or not discouraged, more just that like I have so far to go.
Discouraged, and then you want to move forward, but sometimes the baggages are lower mode. Sometimes
I see. The baggage. Past hurts, past pain that keeps us from really feeling like I can open my heart again. Feeling like, okay, I can try again. I'm going to do this again. Or even just old baggage from previous relationships with family members or loved ones or something, usually it's painful experiences that tend to weigh us down. That's some kind of baggage. And so dealing with the kind of pain and the suffering that comes with that pain. And it can hold us back. It can feel like I'm being held back in my progress, not only in my spiritual life, but even in material life, right? It's sometimes we've all experienced, I'm sure we've all experienced where we have a negative experience, even with work or with some kind of hobby or pursuit, and there's some failure or there's some hurt that comes in a relation, some kind of dealing. And it's so painful that it's like, how do I even continue on? And so that can also happen in spiritual life, right? Especially most painful is the relationships, frankly. We have a painful experience with someone. And so the baggage that comes, I think it's a beautiful question because it's something that's relevant to all of us. My sense is that when I was giving that example of the pilot in this gigantic plane, right? It's this this one person is above, it's superior to the material energy. So this pilot is able to control this gigantic plane. And so these things that happen, they're actually on a material level, the pain and the suffering. And so realizing that the spirit soul is beyond that suffering. And the more I identify with the baggage, the more I identify with the pain and the suffering, the more it will continue to control me. So if I identify myself as a victim of this or a victim of that, or this happened to me, then I am a victim of this material energy. And like that pilot, if he tried to get outside of the plane and push it, it would literally be impossible. He can't do it. To be in a position of actually controlling this material nature, I need to be situated deeply within my spirit. There's no way. Otherwise, I will constantly be just pushed around and pulled around by my baggage, by these. The nature of this world is that I'm going to have painful experiences with people, and I'm going to be hurt, and something unexpected is going to come up. It's just the way of the world. And everyone has baggage. So anyone who doesn't, I don't know if they're speaking truthfully. So the fact is that we have baggage. How do I respond to it? And the most important understanding is that I become a witness to these experiences and not to become so identified with the experience, and becoming more like, okay, this happened. What can I do to move forward with integrity and not resisting the reality? I think it's like, just do my duty and move forward. And I think that's what Krishna emphasizes in the Gita. Just do your duty and keep going and not be attached to results. So even the baggage that feels like it's weighing us down in our spiritual lives or relationships, it's like, okay, let me see this pain. Let me be a witness to it and not identify with it. And how do I deal with it? And how do I move forward and manage it now? And let me become the pilot inside of the in the cockpit. And that way I can control it by being the witness. If I try and move it myself, it would be impossible. So I think identifying strongly as a victim of baggage, I think that is a surefire way to never get over it. So I think, but it's not also helpful to deny the baggage there. It's more just, we all understand there has to be a level of being a witness. It's difficult, but it's possible, and it's very liberating. And just like witnessing, oh, this is what's happening, and because the soul is the witness, right? And God is within the heart of everyone, and He is the witness. So becoming the witness, allowing is a part of moving through it, right? And moving through the pain and the hurt with integrity. And it might take a lot of time, but there's a very different feeling of moving through pain with integrity and moving through it with drama. So yes, it might take many years to move through a certain pain and suffering, but I know I just have to be patient and just endure that kind of suffering, because I know that's just karma, and that's something that's happened in my life, versus the pain of resisting it, the stirring up the drama of the baggage. That's a different experience, and it just perpetuates the cycles and the pain. So just becoming a witness and also taking responsibility. So.
Yes, thank you. That was really profound.
We'll
just close it here with I just have a small question that sometimes when we are not fulfilled, we try to fill it with different things in our life, like the process is susukam, it's very blissful, but we may not directly or all the time may be able to experience it, and we try to fill it with so many different things. And sometimes that could be bad habits and bad addictions and things like that. So how do we go forward? Like we talked about the yoga of love and devotion, it's something practical. It's something that we can all do it at our own level. So just like, what would you like to say on that? Just how do we move forward and make it more practical and fill it with Krishna so that we don't have to look outside?
Right. That's such a wonderful question, because for somebody who's, on the spiritual path for a good amount of time, they'll be like, well, and when you really experience the grace of God and it's like, wow, this is so beautiful, I'm so happy. And then like after some time, it's like, oh my God, this isn't so easy, this is difficult, or whatever it might come up. And then, oh, I'm just gonna go watch a movie, or just I'm gonna go I watch movies, like full disclosure. I like reading novels, like things like that. I'm not like some renounced sage or something in the forest. I think it's this false renunciation. I don't know the Sanskrit term, but if you try and give up something and it's not a genuine letting go, it will always in fact, it not only will come back to haunt you, it'll be worse than before. So if there's a false renunciation, that's not going to help anybody. But it's a matter of losing taste, because this devotion is meant to be a higher taste. It's something that is like, this is so beautiful. Why would I even want to do that, right? There's this feeling, there's something so much more wonderful that I don't need to go in this direction. And I know that for my father-in-law, he became a vegetarian at 70 something years old. It was pretty shocking. Even though my husband is a Hare Krishna, he didn't become a vegetarian because of my husband. He'd watched like PETA videos or something, and he was so shocked by how animals were treated and saw that he decided to become a vegetarian. And so he's actually more of a pescatarian. He eats fish and eggs and things like that, and dairy. But he became a pescatarian, you could say, and from compassionate reasons. But then it also got to the point, I was just visiting them, where he was eating, he was like, I don't want that in my mouth anymore. Like, I don't want flesh in my mouth. Like, it's just not something I want to eat. It's not attractive to him. And it's like, he's let it go. At that point, he'll never go back to eating meat because he lost a taste for it. And I think it has to come from an authentic place. So losing a taste for these other things that we know, reading novels. I love reading novels and watching a movie here and there. It's like, I like to do it, but I always have a little experience here and there. I'm like, that was not so satisfying. I know that. It was like, it was okay. I went shopping. Within an hour, I don't even care what I bought anymore, right? I know there's always a little part of me that, no, this isn't the best. Just be the witness and acknowledge that. And then, okay, I need to just keep doing what I need to do. And okay, I'm going to keep enjoying this way, but just be the witness to this experience and understanding there is a higher taste there. So I think if I try and falsely give it up, it'll just come back to haunt me. If my father-in-law had either been forced to do it, like by my husband never would have done such a thing, but, like kind of badgered into somehow giving up meat, he would have, there's that saying, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. So if you try and convince yourself to stop doing something or use the lower thing, you're convincing yourself against your will. You're of the same opinion. It just might look different. So the key is becoming, again, it's a similar thing. It's still becoming the witness to what is my experience, and then becoming aware that I'm not going to be fully satisfied by this experience. And ultimately, the ultimate is losing taste. If I lose a taste for it, I'll never go back. I'm not even attracted to it. I don't care for it. You could say the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. I'm indifferent. I don't care. Like, it's just not interesting. And so I think that is that is the place to get to, and becoming indifferent to these things that we know are not good for us. The process is to just become aware of how unsatisfying they are. Just remain conscious and just be aware, and that's okay. And even if you do it again, it's okay. Just be aware. So I think that consciousness is how we can progress and eventually grasp more and more of the things that truly do give joy to the heart, like the truest joy, because we feel it and we know it.
Thank you so much. That was really, really helpful. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for enlightening us today and taking out your valuable time tonight for all of us. We're so, so grateful. And hopefully we should see you sometime again soon.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. It was so nice to be with you, and nice to meet you, Roseanne and Jennifer. And I know Brandon was here, so thank you. I feel honored to get to meet you and speak with you. So
yes, thank you so much. We'll end here for today. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandat Pranam Avdhashta.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, sorry for the delay.
No problem, Mataji. It was nice.
Sessions go really long somehow.
Yeah.
Anyway, we were actually telecasting on YouTube, so I don't know if we are supposed to end this meeting and then restart.
Okay, sure, Mataji.
Yeah.
You can end